Hey, Lorne.
Hello, Dan. How are you? Fancy seeing you here.
Actually seeing you here. Yeah, how are you?
Very good, and you?
Good. Yeah, not bad. Um, I think today we're going to wait for a few minutes for more people to join.
Fair enough.
Uh, but while we're doing that, I might start by apologising to everyone if you joined last week. And if you joined last week, you might have seen some jittery, buffery versions of Lorne and myself. We had some bandwidth issues, but
A lot of
I think we're back.
tapping the camera. Is this
Yeah.
thing on? Does this work?
Exactly. There was a lot of that, wasn't there? But yeah, so we postponed. We're back stronger, I hope. Comments are coming in. I would suggest that people can hear us this time.
I think I have a good guess that they can. I think.
I should also say that I suppose I should start actually by introducing myself because everyone's going to know who
Oh
you
no,
are,
I'll
Lorne.
introduce myself. My name is
Okay,
Lorne
so
Balfe.
why don't you go first?
My name is Lorne Balfe, and I'm a composer, and I worked on this amazing show with Dan.
So I'm Dan Tapster. I'm the series producer slash showrunner for Life on Our Planet. Hopefully, everyone has had a chance to watch it. It landed on Netflix on the 25th of October. So, yeah, I think it's now day 21. Seems to be something that a lot of people are talking about, a lot of people are excited about. So, yeah, we're keen to hear your questions today. I should say that the production company that made Life on Our Planet is Silverback Films in Bristol, hence why I'm sitting in front of a giant gorilla.
That's not your wallpaper in your house, then, Dan?
No,
No.
no, I'm in our kind of boardroom, and yeah, it's definitely branded.
You're taking your job to another level. If if we're doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so we'll give people another minute or so to join before we start going through people's questions, which yeah, I'm excited about.
Well, let's see what if the questions get personal.
Well, there might. It'll be interesting. If there's any paleo people on the call, then
Yes.
they might shout some questions at me because I know that that is their way. But if they're there, I've got answers.
Make them hard questions, though. Really hard.
Yes, and the music too. Make those musical
I, I
questions.
I can make those answers up though. That's easy enough.
Yeah, true. Um, okay. Well, I think
Yeah.
we should start.
Yes. Come on.
Yeah, we need to reward the people who are on
Nearly
time,
5:30 now, so might as well.
the people who are late. So, um, I'm going to start with a big question for the beginning, which is, where do you start when trying to create sound for a scene that is set 4 billion years ago?
Blimey. Well, that goes back to what we kind of. I think the first thing we ever talked about is that what is the sound, and the good thing about it is that no one knows. So so there are no rules. Nobody can say it's wrong. Nobody can say um, it's right. But what we talked about was trying to kind of manipulate organicness, so that there is an origin to it. It goes to when we were experimenting with the bone flutes. It was going back and finding what's the first instruments that existed. The voice was the first thing that we kind of talked about, because the concept of people figuring out melody and harmonies was the voice, and that would have been the first thing. So that's why the vocals were a very prominent thing in the school. But then I think it was also just about manipulating the organicness, so that there is an origin to it, but it's manipulated. So I think that we just kept trying to kind of not let the audience feel what they're hearing is what they're seeing, i.e., due to technology, we're able to help, but there is a kind of an authenticity to it. So um, the most basic things like the bone flutes, but then manipulating them, and the carnix, which was an instrument far later dated, but still there was a kind of an importance historically to it. So bringing all those things into our kind of concept of the orchestra.
I mean, I think one of the sort of challenges that we set you as a team here was to make a score that felt timeless, didn't feel of an age,
Yeah.
and why I think the embracing some of those instruments was particularly amazing, really a eureka moment, as some people have talked about in the chat. Um, the bone flute, for everyone, that Lorne is referencing, is a Neanderthal instrument. I think it's called the Jive Baba bone flute, and it's 55,000 years old. Lorne didn't get the original, but got a 3D print version. But I think that's the sort of level that we try to do, and same with the Carnix, which I think is the Celtic
Yeah.
Bronze Age.
Celtic. Yeah. Yeah, that instrument, it's weird. I was reading a different report about it than what I was under the impression, but the whole purpose of it was to kind of to scare the enemy, and it's pitch based. But no, it is that. It's about trying to figure out what can we do that you you knew from the beginning you just didn't want to do the quintessential score that comes in with this territory. So you guys kind of came up with the concept. I just executed it. That's all.
That's very modest. Okay, I'm going to move on. Next question. Were there any times where you found it difficult or got writer's block, or in general just thought, WTF? How are you supposed to score this moment?
Dinosaurs theme.
Why was that particularly challenging?
Uh, um, no, I think the challenging thing was um, it's it's quite an opinionated point of view to kind of be able to say this is the sound of the world. This is the sound of evolution. So I think every single thing had its challenge, um, and trying to kind of make sure that we understood writing for TV is very complicated because it's much bigger than film. You've got more episodes, there's more minutes, so it's creating what the DNA is of our show. That each theme was the difficult thing. So making sure that the concept of extinction, what is the sound of that, and how can you make sure it kind of progresses? So it's every single thing has complexities to it, but there's no time for writer's block though. That's it's whatever I meant. It's like going to your teacher in the morning without your your homework, in the dog ate. You can't say, I can't phone you up as the client and say, I got writer's block last night. I haven't got anything. But and also that it is about working as a team. I might think it's the right theme and you might not. If, I can't convince you that I think that's the right theme. So it's just about kind of um, figuring out collectively what's the best approach to it. I don't know if that answered it, but
I think from my point of view, one of the things that's very different about Life on Our Planet, or Loop as we refer to it, compared to other shows I've made in the natural history space,
yeah,
is that dramatic element. That it has a series-wide narrative with moments that keep reoccurring, and,
yes,
and to have that reflected in the music was something I'd not considered before, not had to do on other projects, but whilst that was one of the biggest challenges, I think it worked really well. And I'll give a couple of examples. That in episode 3, we have this battle between scutosaurs and gorgonopsids, but we briefly see a lystrasaur who comes to inherit the earth later, as people may have seen. But Lystrasaur represents the mammal lineage. And in that piece of music, it's largely about reptiles because of Scutosaurus. So it's got the reptile theme, but just when we hear Lystrosaurus or see Lystrosaurus, there's maybe 4 bars of the mammals theme. And it just, from a music point of view, just sows the seed that that dynasty is going to have its own melody, and that comes to the fore in episode 4, where Lystrosaurs are a bit more successful, and of course in episode 7, which is about the mammals. And I thought the way you crafted those themes and interplayed them was, yeah, very clever.
I think the point of the theme also is to continuously remind the audience what they should be feeling when we kind of bring them back all the time, bring them back so that they can, because again, it's not one episode, it's not one sitting, it's multiple. So you've got to kind of help the audience be able to kind of understand automatically what that emotion of extinction is, or the concept of Earth. So it's there to try to kind of, even if you're fragmenting it and just doing it for a couple of bars, it's just to kind of help hold the hand of the audience and just remind them what you have set up in that first, the first 5 minutes of episode 1. There's a lot being told.
And extinction itself is quite difficult because it's portrayed in the series as sort of violent and, awesome in the truest sense of the word, but also harrowing and disastrous.
Yes.
So how do you work out a track that covers such extremes of emotion?
Yeah. Well, yes. Well, I think all of the themes have the same kind of concept to them and same structure, i.e., there's a motif, then there's a verse, and then there's a chorus. So that so with the motifs, it can just be a three note hook or a sound, just so that we don't need to always play themes, because sometimes if there's a lot of, you're fighting against, not fighting, you're embracing it, but you are fighting against talking, and you don't want to distract the audience too much with big themes going on underneath it. So that's why each concept has always got a little hook to it, so that it can just be minimally used, but still kind of remind the audience about where it's from.
Okay, I'm going to some questions that people have sent in so far. So, at Brooke Slaby, apologies if I'm mispronouncing that, what were some happy accidents that made their way into the score, unplanned spots of eureka, etc.?
Eureka. Now everything's planned. Everything is intentionally a concept. I think the main titles. That was kind of writing another theme not for it, and all of you over there liking it. That to me is the eureka moment when it's out of your control. And because we did try quite a few other ones.
Yeah.
And that was the one that you all liked, and kind of, then we massaged it and made it work to picture. So
Yeah.
to me, what about you? What was your eureka moment on making the show, though?
Oh, I think probably
Discovering me.
discovering you first and foremost. Yeah. Significantly below that, the realization that we could dramatize the story of life on our planet such that it was, I suppose, nature's very own Game of Thrones. That where instead of the Lannisters and the Starks and the Targaryens, you've got the mammals, the reptiles, and the dinosaurs. But it's that concept of succession and one-upmanship and backstabbing and all the rest of it, with the Earth being the great leveler. And I think we realised that this wasn't just a predictable walk through the past, but this incredible wild ride. That was our eureka moment. Okay, at Dave Graham Music, with such an iconic series, where did you start with the score? I mean, you may have answered some of that already. Or how about finding new sounds? Did you have discussions about what directions to take, or did you just try stuff?
No, we. So the process was we, before doing anything to picture, it was making sure all of you approved the themes. So it was knowing that the concept of extinction was liked, and then presenting it that way, and then once approved, then getting it to picture, because again, it's well, there's a lot of voices in TV and film that have got to be heard. So there's not one person that kind of says, "Oh, yeah, I like that," and so you need to kind of make sure everybody on the creative side, the production side, is hearing it and kind of agree, because if you don't, then we can't be having that theme working throughout all the episodes, because they've got to relate somehow. So that's the most time consuming thing, is making sure that you get your themes signed off so that everybody clearly knows what our DNA is for the show.
At Timo_Wilson asks, how has this project changed the way you approach themes or instruments that you have worked with often?
Well, it's changed. It's changed. You don't often get allowed to write big themes. So that's a changing thing, because I think sometimes, depending on the genre, some people don't want themes. Some people just want underscore and texture. So that's kind of the big thing to kind of walk away with. It is the ability to, you can't beat a good theme. I'm not saying that they're great themes. I'm just saying that's the objective, is to trying to write something that's ear candy. And you don't know how. Nobody knows how to do it. You just have to kind of keep chipping away until you feel that you've got something that you're going to hum, and that the audience can hum.
Okay, at Catherine LA, does the balance between music and narration also come down to the music editor as well?
Uh, yes. Well, it comes down to the editor, the director, um, and and the network. There was a few times that notes came back, and I think, but there would be sometimes, because a lot of the time people are watching temp music's not anything written by us, and it's just from other shows, and they put, it's placed whilst editing to try to give an impression of what the mood is. So when that gets sent out to executives and networks, they will they will try to kind of say, well, this scene's too dark, and that could be because of the temp music, or sometimes it is literally because it's two animals ripping their hearts out. So there's always that kind of going on, and
I mean, I think one of the challenges of that as a genre, obviously, is there's no dialogue. Our
yeah,
subjects speak to each other, and so the music really is the way to cue up the emotion of the scene. We can do that a little bit with big close-ups and all the rest of it, and a degree of narration that sometimes slides into a hint of anthropomorphism into it, but
yeah,
really down to the music. And so I think in answer to that question, the balance between music and narration is a difficult one, because we need to not use narration to convey emotion and let the music take over there. But at the same time, we've got to make sure the audience is really clear on what is happening, or
yeah,
the behind the story. So it's a constant challenge, I
yeah.
think, in the natural history space, actually.
Yeah, and it's it's every sentence is informative. So having music underneath it has to be there to support it, but it can become distracting, and it can overkill. And I think normally there is a kind of a cliche sometimes with this genre of music, where when there's when there isn't any narration, the composer goes ballistic, and they just kind of they write the big musical moment, and because that's their moment to shine. um and narration changes, the positioning of it changes, so it's always being evolved.
That is true. Okay, I'm moving on. Uh, James Armstrong asks quite a lot of questions. Uh, Bear with me 1 second. How do you create a good dynamic range in those big, epic orchestral sections of your score? Do you automate the levels of each single section, or do you use some sort of compression side chaining in certain parts to make room for different instruments?
No, it's got to be it's got to be written and performed at the volume that you listen to, because if not, it's a weird mix. If you've got everybody playing loudly and you turn it down, there's a false sense of reality there. So when recording, it's got to be the same. The other thing is that we always record all the sections separately, so that the melodies are separate. Sometimes the short strings will be separate, so that when you're in the mix, you're able to kind of change the intensity of what's going on, because sometimes you may, fighting with the sound effects is always a difficult thing, because it's like Highlander, there can only be one, and it's got to be so it's figuring out not when to fight too much. But no, things are recorded separately, sections are recorded separately, and then when they're dubbing, everybody's got a different fader for every single stem. So that's how, I'm going to say that's how you do it. Makes it sound very simple, but the mixer has full control of everything.
Brendan Child asks, on a project of this magnitude, what is the ratio between live musicians and samples?
Ratio. Uh, um,
We're looking for a
I
precise
know. I was
percentage.
going to say, so we're 72.3. Uh, everything has originated from live and then been manipulated. So 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 things, we had the LSO playing, and they're performing on it. We also had the Royal Scottish National Orchestra performing on it. Um, um, all the voices are real. Um, some of the instrumentation that we're talking about, the bone flutes and carnix, is all real, but then it's manipulated, so then that becomes synthetic. Um, the objective is so that you don't really know what is real and what's not. But we recorded every single episode we recorded, and if we didn't record some things, it was because we wanted them to sound manipulated or synthetic. So each episode, um, we were recording with the orchestras, and if it sounds a bit strange, then it probably is something that's synthetic.
Okay. Um, I'm Henry Miles asks, how do you approach composing a big sound while maintaining a sense of fragility as well? He felt that was especially accurate with the track Milestones. And any tips for crafting that sort of sound?
Uh, um, Space, letting the music breathe, not pushing too many notes in your melodies, and then the voicing of things. It's trying to kind of treat your sections as kind of inter interlapping, so that you start kind of having not everybody playing the same chords. You have your horns on your top line, then you have the trombones on your second, then you have your horns on your third. It's just about kind of placing it and positioning it. It's weird. What is a big sound? You can get some schools where it's just a handful of instruments and it can sound big. So it's just about, I think it's about owning it and just being bold. So you kind of match what's there, and I think that's the that's either, and also just kind of craft it, treat it like colors, so it's big and then small, and not constantly just have one tone going throughout it, because when that happens it just becomes monotonous, and it's just you wouldn't do it. Your show is not filmed that way. It's constantly evolving. So the music's got to kind of evolve and change tone and colors.
What is your favorite scene in Loop, and what is your favorite piece of music?
No, I don't know about favorite piece of music. I'm not going to answer that. Um, I think the end of the last episode, where everything's kind of coming together, and you're on that journey of what is next. I always think it was just interesting when we kept talking about the concept of extinction, and the fact that it's happened and then it'll happen again, and that kind of sense of understanding that we're quite insignificant. So much time. What was the thing that you said to me about our connection between the iPad, the distance
Oh,
of?
that's a great stat. One of the things I've loved about working on Loop is all these sort of great stats and facts that we've learned along the way. But one of them is it would be more inaccurate to show a T-Rex walking around with a Stegosaurus than it would to show a T-Rex walking around with an iPad.
Yeah.
Yeah, the range is so long that, yeah, there's 66 million years between T-Rex and an iPad, but there's, I think, 85 million years between a T-Rex and a
Yeah,
Stegosaur. So,
that
yeah,
that puts everything into context, doesn't it? You just kind of go, right, we're we're, we're so arrogant thinking we're important, but we're actually just a little, you know, a,
I think
a
I agree. I think the end of episode 8 is very powerful. For those who haven't seen it, I won't spoil it.
no.
We wanted to get the audience to think about the ending.
Yeah.
We did then a series finale where they would just then see what is next on Netflix, but wanted them, as the credits roll, to think, huh, what are we going to do about this? So I
Yes.
recommend
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. What's your favorite scene?
Um, that's a good question. Weirdly, my favorite VFX scene is from episode 2. It's Camaraceros, the giant squid thing, when it meets the trilobite.
Yes.
But I like that scene for 2 reasons. Firstly, there's a really nice little Easter egg to the movie Taken, which I challenge people to find if they watch it. But actually, I like it because at the end of the kind of crazy predation moment, we meet Aaron Daspis. And Aaron Daspis is a real example of what we were trying to do with Life on Our Planet. So he is an absolute underdog. He looks ridiculous, wearing this sort of expression of permanent surprise that gave Morgan the giggles when we did the. But he's sort of this bullied underdog with potential, and then this massive climate change moment comes along, and the creatures that sort of bullied him into submission all die out, and he inherits the earth, and ultimately becomes the vertebrates. So, mammals, birds, amphibians, reptiles are all descended from that one seemingly insignificant creature that might not have done anything if it weren't for the curveball that the earth
Yeah.
threw. So I love those kind of little
Yes.
stories.
The underdog.
The underdog, exactly. Okay. Declan James McLeish asks, with your team at 14th Street, did you let additional composers run with ideas, or did you share the main theme with them to help them understand your vision of this gigantic project?
No, you've always got to let people bring ideas to you. If you don't, then it's just, I don't think it's a particularly great working environment. Um, you you've got you've got to have you've got to come up with a vision. You've got to come up with the themes. You've got to come up with what the concept is. And there's got to be a concept of what is what is the food group here? What is the DNA? There's got to be a clear vision, um, and then I think, like every project, you've just got to surround yourself by other creatives that will then twist it or manipulate it or bring something different to it. If you say to people, no, only do, don't think and just do, it doesn't help. So everybody's got to bring something to the table, um, and think outside the box with what we've got, and start kind of creating something. So no, you've got to kind of, it's no different than any other department. To me, we've got to kind of stop. Well, it's a different, so it's a different conversation, this, but we've got to kind of stop thinking that one person does these jobs now. And it's like a VFX house is not one person. It just, it doesn't work that way. And
Got to give people the autonomy to give it a go.
yes, and also you look at, like, with editing, there will, on some films there'll be 8 editors and there's assistant editors, and because they're just, you can't keep up with the turnover. So there are teams that you've got to have teams, and for those that say that there aren't teams, they're lying. It's you've got to have an infrastructure around you to be able to kind of create, and at the end of the day, there is a timeline. If 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 um if you've got maybe a month per episode, and you don't have the music done in a month, you're going to be sitting on a dub stage costing 5-10 grand a day without the ability to mix anything. So it's really important to have an infrastructure around you, and let people bring things to the table and say, oh, I've come up with this idea.
I suppose this is sort of related, but at shikar.wav asks, have you got any tips for aspiring composers? Someone who might have just started in the industry.
Don't listen to anybody's opinion. I always, people always send me stuff and say, "Will you have a listen and tell me what you think?" I say no, because I don't. Who am I to say that's good or not? It's so subjective, and if I said I don't think it's good, that could jeopardize them ever continuing their career. And I just think you've got to kind of, you've got, if it's in you, you just got to keep doing it, and it may work out and it may not, but don't listen too deeply to critics. It's like everything. We've talked about this, about critics, and so what? They could be wrong.
Yes, that's
and
right.
and and I've eaten in great restaurants where I've read a bad review. Everybody's a critic. It shouldn't matter. So don't listen to to critique, because it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, and I think that's particularly important these days. We definitely live where there's becoming a cultural shift to uh, the popularity of belittling something. You know,
Totally.
haters are going to hate. Just accept it.
I got somebody who every, I say, twice or 3 times a year comes out and messages me just to remind me to say I'm the Chuck Norris of film music, and it's like. I like the fact that they waste their energy sending it all the time, but it's like it's Chuck Norris is pretty good. I like some of his films. You've just got to kind of blank that out and start kind of spending time watching films, watching TV shows, and figure and make understanding storytelling. That's the advice.
Yeah, good advice. Certainly the storytelling. That's, yeah, very important.
Because I think it's debatable about what, back to the themes. It's debatable what a good theme is. What it's like a good song. I know that you love Taylor Swift, but there's lots of people that don't. So we may kind of have difference in opinions on what a good tune is.
Indeed.
You didn't
Uh,
deny it.
exactly. I'm just going to let that one slide, Lorne. At Revel Music, presumably no relation to Barney Revel, who was producer director of episodes 4 and 5, asks, which string library do you use to compose?
That's a good nerdy conversation. Was wondering how long that was going to. All of the above.
Okay.
Not gonna endorse anybody, but if I look at it, it literally is a mixture of everything out there, and uh, using different libraries for different things. Um, Spitfire is there's a lot of Spitfire cine samples, um, but it is a mixture of every single library probably out there, and um, something new comes along, you try it, and then that goes into your library. So there's no one library. It's a collection.
Okay. I've got another question that is sort of veering slightly that way. From at Antoine Patterson _9. How do you figure out what key to use in what scenes? And what is the progression you use first before changing it?
You know what key you're doing from the cue before. That's all. Yeah, I don't think there is no rule about knowing what key there is. It's whatever it's whatever it's at. I tell you what. Normally 9 times out of 10, it's the key is related to the theme it was written in, because you're going to be using the same instrumentation or the same. With us, we were using certain singers, so we knew that register worked for them. So that's you'd always try to keep it in that same key because it works. They can sing it, they can reach it. So there's no point kind of overcomplicating it and changing it to a different key if they can't if they're unable to reperform it.
Here's a question that I think is interesting from at Aguiar Colin. Can I ask about how much time you had? What was the schedule like from sketching of the themes all the way to notes and dub stage?
So when did we speak?
I think
Last
it
summer?
was we flirted with each other for a few months,
Yes.
and then I think once we were working together, I think it was probably 8 or 9 months. Um, there was Loop had a sort of curious production schedule, some of which was impacted by COVID, but the result of it meant that 4 episodes were ready quite a long time before the next 4. And in a slightly annoying way for Loop, those first 4 weren't episodes 1, 2, 3, 4. They were episodes 2, 3, 4, and 7.
Yeah.
And then later came 1, 5, 6, and 8. And so what was really useful from production's point of view is that by the time we were editing 1, 5, 6, 8, we had a lot of the themes because 2, 3, 4, 7 were almost completed.
Yes.
And meant that you referenced temp music earlier. It meant that as we built 1, 5, 6, 8, we could use Lorne's music as the temp music, and so it made the whole thing a bit more seamless, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that you know I think it was. Um, I think the longest time was spent was just kind of getting all the the eggs together and kind of figuring out. We made you those videos, do you remember? And about the different instrumentation to kind of be used and things. And so I think once you have a clear understanding of the tone of the show, I think you can hit it hard and kind of get going, get an episode done probably in a month, probably less than a month. And then if this picture cut changes, that then changes the schedule thing. And then working backwards, then you need a week before the orchestra to get all the orchestrations done, and then recording the orchestra takes 3-4 days, then the mixing of that's another 4 days. So you got to work backwards, knowing what your completion is.
Why? Here's a question slightly related. Why did you work with both the LSO and the Royal Scottish Orchestras?
Because I can.
Okay.
Easy. Easy. We uh, um,
Quite
scheduling
rem
time.
schedule,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah. You're basically kind of doing an episode, and then there's nothing to do for a while, and then you lose availability with orchestras. Um, they're both. I think they're both two of the top orchestras in the world. And that brings their own challenges. They go on tour, they're performing, and they're busy doing other sessions. So the reason is the scheduling. We were recording over a period of 5 months, 4 months. So to be
Yeah,
able to get the exact same people is just impossible. So it's about that availability, and also it's just about getting an orchestra that that's going to make it epic, um, and be able to bring that big sound to it, which a lot of orchestras can't necessarily do, and but they can.
they definitely can. When you are composing, this is from at Gaberius_108. Do you like playing on keyboard or do you prefer other instruments?
Well, uh, keyboard, and then you basically. I remember Gavin Greenaway. He's an amazing composer, and he also conductor. And he always said to me, when you play on the keyboard, you've always got to imagine the instrument you're playing. So if you're writing for violins, you've got to kind of play it and imagine that you are a violinist, and then you have a better understanding about how to write. But no, everything is on a keyboard. um, I can only play two chords on a guitar, so I'm pretty lousy, and I'm all right. I'm all right on the recorder, but no, everything is done on a keyboard, and you kind of don't need to be great at the piano, but it helps because compared to 30 years ago, everything's about the demo now. You as the boss want to hear it. You can't. Gone are the days when people didn't used to hear it until it was being recorded.
Mm.
I was speaking to a director he used to work on Murder She Wrote and all these old shows, and he just said nobody ever heard anything. I'd sit on the piano, I'd play something and go, oh, it's got to sound like that when she gets killed. It'll be long, no, 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 no. It'll sound like this and a trumpet, and you never heard it until the day of recording. And that's just we don't work that way now. We've got to, you've got to hear how it sounds. There's no kind of, oh, it'll be something like this. The demos have got to sound so dead on that there's no kind of discussion about is it this or is it not.
At Finian Dr. Hearn asks, is scoring documentaries? Actually, I'm going to change your question slightly, Finian.
Yes, Finian.
Loop. Life on Our Planet, was it more difficult than some of the other things you've worked on?
Yes, because again, because of we talked about this. It's writing writing an, a hit is hard enough on an album. Writing two is pushing it, and what we had to do was to do that for every single theme, was to kind of keep making sure every single concept was had its own uniqueness, and its and being able to be memorable, and uh, so that's what makes it difficult. I think with a film, sometimes you kind of you don't want to overcomplicate things, so you kind of have maybe the kind of uh, the main theme, and some character themes, but then that can get complicated because if you're going, the pacing is much faster. So, so you don't necessarily do as many. So with this, you do need many, and they've all got to be as good or as better than the prior one. So that's the hardest one, to keep pushing and being able to kind of feel that we've achieved each one is as important and memorable as the other one.
I mean, I think in general, from my point of view, Life on Our Planet was the hardest thing I've ever made.
Yeah. What?
Uh,
Why?
well,
Because
because of the subject matter.
yeah.
A 4 billion year story of life on Earth is a difficult story to tell, particularly when you're trying to combine VFX of extinct animals with this sort of context legacy idea of what we live with in the world today.
Yes.
And the music is the same, just every part of that process was
Yes.
difficult. Um, okay. What else have we got? Answered that one. We've answered that one. Brandon Campbell underscore music. This might be your second question. What was the most challenging aspect of working on the series?
Working with Brandon. I, challenging. I think the concept of um, the size, the kind of the sheer size of it. May, trying to kind of always understand if we're using too much theme, if is there not enough. Um, um, dealing, dealing with big music teams is very difficult because you've got to. There's a lot of people in it. You've got a lot of additional writers. You've got orchestrators, and it takes a lot of people to kind of get the job done. So that's weirdly writing the music isn't as hard as that, because that's hard graft. Writing a tune is just chipping away at something, and and trying to kind of make sure you guys are happy. That's the difficult thing, is making sure that the client is happy, because that it is a job. It's if I just want to write music for myself, I'll write for the concert hall. But this is a business, and you, at the end of the day, you've got to be happy about it, and um so making sure that the client is happy is the hardest one.
This is a slightly different question. If you could be any dinosaur, what would it be?
uh well uh um
He wants to say
no, no,
T-Rex
no, no.
before.
Right, that's the cliche, but it's so not nothing like me. Don't know. What would you be?
Uh,
What would you be?
would I be from the series? Or I would probably be. a Deinonychus, and
Why?
the implication of that is it's a team player.
Gosh, you've put thought into that, haven't you?
30 seconds worth of thought went into that. Uh, this is another slightly strange one. If a T-Rex had a theme tune, what would it be? I didn't question.
Yeah, it would probably have to be some exact opposite of what it looks like, because I think that's the cliche, and I think that you it would have to be kind of, if you look at it, that that's where the weight and ferociousness is. So you'd probably totally turn it around and do something very minimal and um, smaller, basically, just so visually you could make sure that it was looking bigger.
Yeah.
I was cheating. I was trying to look up. I was googling stupidest looking dinosaurs, uh, and there's some hell of a classic ones out there. Then you probably know this one. Then the Insicaviosaurus. You know that one?
No.
That's the one I would be.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. Okay, people, please keep your questions coming in. We've got about 10 minutes left of this. Nicholas Steinbach asks, how often do you rely on orchestras to expand upon ideas during the live orchestral recordings?
Orchestras to expand, or orchestrators?
Uh,
Oh,
orchestrators.
orchestrators. Um, no. It's a very difficult. It's a very difficult thing, that, because what is in the demos is what you have heard, and if it gets changed, 9 times out of 10, you come knocking on the door, say, "Why does it sound totally different? That's not what we heard." So it's you rely on the orchestrators to dissect it and make it playable, to figure out how many passes. But but in the olden days, the orchestrator was really kind of what an arranger was, and you'd give a piano map, and they would fill it in, because there was no demo to compare it to. So that's how you would get it done, is by providing a map, and then they would orchestrate it and add different colors to it. But now, if you do that, you will sit there and just goes, it sounds nothing like what you've changed it, and we go around in circles. So the demo has got to sound, gives the clear instructions to your orchestrators what they've got to do.
Yeah. I mean, to sort of pull back the curtain a little bit for people, when you are making the show, when you're in the cutting room making it, you have a series of cuts that get reviewed by yourself, other people at Silverback, the team at Amblin, Spielberg, Netflix, and those happen at sort of various points through the process. But you end up at a point where you reach picture lock, and when you reach picture lock, what is from then on, the show is meant to basically stay the same. It gets better in the sense that final VFX come in, you'll grade the show, so you colorize it so it looks better. The final orchestrated music comes in, but it's all meant to reflect what happens at the stage of picture lock. And the other good example in that is narration.
Yes.
You know, really meant to change the narration at that point. So when we went over to Morgan, occasionally he would ad lib, and if we thought the ad lib would work, we would put it in the show, and we'd have to specifically ask various people if we could go with that. But yeah, you've almost got a
didn't know that. So what? How do you ad lib? Information like actual data that's got to be kind of.
Well, it wasn't it wasn't the factual lines, but like I referred to Aaron Daspis earlier, and there was a line that originally said something like uh, looking surprised from afar, and he was like, "Can we say graced with a look of permanent shock?" It's like, yeah, great, that's cool. So there'd just be some bits like that where he would, I suppose, put it in his own words a bit.
Yeah.
Mostly not, because we'd tried really hard to kind of write it with his voice in mind.
Yes.
But yeah, that did happen. Um, okay, here's an interesting question. Sven Johann Victor, what composers, alive or dead, have inspired you the most?
Uh, you answer that one first.
I don't think people care. Well, did they know
I
that,
care.
I'm going to say Taylor Swift? Yeah, already. Um, I did a lot of classical music when I was a kid, and my father was absolutely obsessed with Beethoven. So he is my go-to, with weirdly a mixture of Scott Joplin
Oh,
thrown in.
nice,
Yeah,
nice. No, I to me it was a lot of British composers, Vaughan Williams, um, Elgar, uh, more contemporary, I would say. A lot of 80s, The Art of Noise. That's probably that's the uh, most inspiration is all of that, Depeche Mode and thing. But then it's Stuart Copeland. Just he did Wall Street, and and it's just different points of view, and then of course Hans's music. I worked for Hans for about 15, 18 years. So his style of music and his melodies, all of that has been a massive inspiration, because it's you know I learned everything I know really from that period of time.
makes sense. What is so? I'm sorry, I'm throwing slightly random questions at you right now, but because we're in the last couple of minutes, uh, Jose Crop, what's your favorite custom sound or timbral element from the score?
Favorite sound, is all the vocals.
Okay.
Um, all of their individual, because the one thing we didn't want to do was just get a conventional choir and make it kind of to sound as if it was godlike and ethereal. So it was creating those great textures with all the individual singers, but then adding them together and layering them. So that to me, I really liked, because the voice, just the way they would bend and just not sing things too perfectly. What about you? What was yours?
I'm not sure I fully understood the question,
Well, just agree with me. It's the voices.
but the I did love the
Oh yes,
Carnix.
yes,
I
yes, yes.
really haunted,
Yeah,
and I feel that in the same way that the wind instruments have given the Mandalorian a unique sound,
yeah,
recognize it no matter
yeah.
what part here. I thought the Carnix did that for us.
Yes. Yeah, and also I think the Carnix, when you kind of hear it, you kind of just get transported back to when you can imagine what it was like on a battlefield.
Mm.
It's just a very kind of haunting sound.
Okay, listen, we've got a couple of minutes left. What's your favorite vinyl artwork out of all the chapters?
Oh,
I love the Mammoth.
Mammoth, yes,
Mammoth looks great.
yeah.
When is the vinyl out? Do you know?
Well, I can do my maths and go. I'm gonna guess it's in about 4 months.
I think that is about right.
Did that,
Yes.
based on, there was there's a shortage of vinyl in the world. they can't produce it quick enough to keep up. So basically, you need about 6 to 8 months. So
I'll see
so
if I can get a proper date before our hour is out. If any of the behind the scenes team, oh yes, someone said you can pre-order it now. I've been told it can be pre-ordered now.
it doesn't give
When,
us an answer though. You can pre-order it and get it in a year's time.
exactly. Yeah. Um, any plans for Loop going forwards? That's a tricky question to answer because we're often signed up to various non-disclosure agreements. But I suppose I might ask that to save you getting water, Lorne. I can't really answer it other than to say something is going to be coming next year from a Life on Our Planet music point of view. So watch these channels for an exclusive announcement in the future.
I'll have to tune in to find out what you're talking about.
Don't pretend you don't know. Okay,
I'm a bad poker player.
we are slightly past our hour. So I'm going to say, first of all, thank you very much, Lorne. Thanks for your time today to talk about
Late February is when the vinyl will be ready.
late February. Good.
Late
Pre-order.
Feb. Yeah.
Thanks for your
No,
time, Lorne. Thanks
thank you, Dan. Lovely seeing you.
thanks to those who asked questions. Apologies to those whose questions we didn't get around to. But yeah, look, thanks very much,
Yeah.
everyone.
My favorite Nando's dish isn't particularly interesting. That was one of them.
Okay, I didn't see. And for those who haven't watched the show, Life on Our Planet, available on Netflix, 8-part series about the full story of life from 4 billion years ago through to today. So it's quite the story. But thanks everyone for joining us today, and yeah, watch this space for that exclusive announcement at some point. Okay, right. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.